Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have several cards that I've made for the October 2019 Brutus Monroe Inspiration Box. And if you didn't see the unboxing, I will have that linked down below because you'll want to see what all comes in this kit. There's a ton of stuff and I don't even end up using it all. Alright, so I'm going to start off using some paper for my first card. This is the Fresh Squeeze paper. I'm trimming that down to be the whole front of an A2 size card. And originally I thought I would back my little laser cut speech bubble with some orange, but I decided I needed a brighter color, so I grabbed some of the yellow out of the kit. And I'm just going to use my tape runner and I'm going to stick this down onto the paper. And then I'm going to trim that out with my scissors. This is kind of old school, I guess. We used to do this with chipboard and laser cuts all the time. And I am just going to do the same thing. So, yeah, and once I'm done with this, as you notice, I don't get it right up to the edge. It's just not ever been very good at that. So I'm going to take a sander. This is the Doris sandpaper pointer, and I'm just going to sand the rest of those edges. And I'm sanding down, so I pull the paper down to the edge, and it'll end up sanding off all the excess paper all around this laser cut. So it works out really, really nicely to do it that way. Now that all of our sanding is done, we're going to go ahead and put this inside of my mini Misti. I've decided which sentiments I want to use. I'm going to actually combine a couple. And I'm putting it in the Misti for a couple of reasons. I want to ink this up and I want to make sure that I ink it up really well because there's really no going back on this. If you screw it up, you'll have to you have to use one of the other laser cuts and start over. Or, or you'd have to layer your paper on top. So I decided I just wanted to stamp it out a couple different times. And then I'm going to clean it off because my next step is I'm going to go over the top of it with embossing ink. And then I'm going to use the Icicle embossing powder that came in the kit. This stuff is a clear detail embossing powder. It's fantastic. And I use the embossing ink because the detail ink dries a little too quickly to actually hold any of the embossing powder. But I'm just kind of wiping away because I didn't use a magic powder bag. I really wasn't as concerned simply because this is a clear embossing powder. I just really wasn't that concerned. If it had been another color, I absolutely would have used my embossing bag over the top. And as you can see, I'm just melting that powder and it's going to end up making the word beautiful nice and shiny. Because this is such a simple card, I wanted to make sure that I had, those details really stand out. So now I've lined up the word hello in there and I'm going to do the exact same process where I'll ink this up. I think I ended up inking it up about 3 times. So I'll ink it up 3 times with the Raven Detail ink just to make sure that I have such a nice crisp dark image. Then I'll clean off my stamp. And I use the Squeaky Clean from Brutus Monroe to do this, but I also just put that right onto a microfiber cloth. And now I'm inking that up again with the embossing ink. And then I'm going to cover that with the Icicle embossing powder. And then once again, I'll heat that till that is smooth and melted. And it's really easy to tell because it totally changes color. But I'm not done there. Take a look at how shiny that is. Love it. I am going to grab some surface ink. This is surface ink in the color. Oh, I didn't write it down, but I will definitely have it in the description box down below. I think it's Rouge. So it's like a very dark pink. And so I'm just going to ink that up. The surface ink is an ink that will stay wet for a little bit of time. So that is why I chose to use this. I'll ink it up a couple times. And then I don't have to go over the top of that with the embossing ink because that does stay wet. So then I'll just pour my powder over the top. And then I will heat that. And you'll be able to tell once again that that is melted. And that's nice and shiny now too. Love it. And then to make things easy, I'm just going to put a little foam tape all over the back of my laser cut speech bubble. And then before I take off the backing paper, I'm going to use the Not Your Mama's Cardstock. This stuff is awesome because it's 130 pound weight. So it is great for really heavy card bases. So you're going to have a very sturdy card with this. So I'm going to take that piece of 8.5 by 11 and I'm going to cut it down so I'll have 2 bases. So it'll be 5.5 by 8.5, and then I'm going to stick this inside of my score buddy, and I am going to score this at 4.25 inches, so this will be a top folding horizontal A2 size card. And then I'll go ahead and start adhering all the pieces. So I'll use some liquid glue on the back of my Fresh Squeeze paper. Love the vibrancy of these colors, so pretty. And then I will start taking off the backing paper from my Brutus Monroe foam tape. And I always use a little paper piercer to do this. It makes it a whole lot easier to get a grip on the backing paper. And then I'll stick it down, and there you go. That finishes off card number 1. Easy peasy, orange slice squeezy. For card number 2, we're going to do some Copic coloring on one of the foilables. So I'm going to start off with this V04, and I'm going to color this big area. And so my suggestion to you when you're coloring big areas, if you're not used to doing that, is to try and work in small sections and to use your alcohol markers, or in this case I'm using Copics, to do circular motions. Now this paper that I'm using, I don't know exactly what kind of paper it is that the foilables are on, so there is going to be a little bit of splotchiness, but the best thing to do, like I said, and this is with whatever paper you're using, if you're going to be doing a big area, would be to work in circles. I'm going to come in with the RV06, and I'll be honest with you, what I'm doing right now I'm not super thrilled with. I thought it was going to look a little bit different. I end up making it work later, but I wasn't real excited about what I had going on here. So I try and pull that out a little bit, and I'm still not super happy with it. I keep pulling it or turning it over, and this is how you can tell sometimes when you're saturating the paper too much if there's too much color on the back. So I keep trying to look for that. Now I'm taking a B00, and I'm using a flicking motion because I don't want the color to go all the way to the edge. It's hard to tell on camera or on the picture what you're seeing here. It's hard to tell that I'm actually getting a lot of color down, but I am. The second color I'm coming in with is BG01, and I'm just doing again the flicking motion and not going quite as far. And then at this point I take that RV06 and I do the same type of motion. I start flicking just to kind of lighten that color out, go from one edge all the way in, and then I'll go back in with the V04 and I will flick that even more, and I end up really liking the way that that ends up looking. I am going to foil this, and I'm going to apologize. I can't fit my Amazon Basics laminator over here, so you're not going to see me actually do it on camera. This is the new foil from Brutus Monroe. This stuff is awesome. It is a gold. I'll have it linked down below. It's so pretty. They have, I think, 3 new colors, and you're going to want to check those out. But I run this through my Amazon Basics laminator about 3-4 times, depending. I don't use a metal, or I don't use a metal shim. I don't use any shim whatsoever. I don't use a cardstock shim, although I might try using that. And I'm going to save that piece because that can be used for something in the future. But I love how this ends up looking. It's so pretty. Now I'm going to put this into my mini Misti because I'm going to do some stamping, and I'm grabbing a couple of the sentiments. And I don't think I mentioned this stamp set is called Extra Sentimental, and it is available separately. So if you don't get your hands on the kit, which I highly recommend getting your hands on the kit because the stamp set alone is worth $23.99 and the kit is worth, you know, what, $10 more. So I definitely recommend it. But if you can't, it's called Extra Sentimental. And I love how they can, some of them can really go together so nicely. I seriously love you, you rock. I thought that was perfect. And now I'm going to put the Brutus Monroe foam tape on the back of this as well. I did trim it down just a little bit, and I have one of my card bases all ready to go. Top folding A2 size card. And then I'll peel off all of my backing paper. And then when I put this down, I am going to put it down right at the top. So there will be a small border around both sides and at the bottom. And I'm not done there. I do decide to grab the little sequin mix from the kit, and I'm going to use my crystal katana along with the Brutus Monroe craft glue, and I'm going to put some of those down. I love the different sizes of the sequin mix. It's wonderful. And so then once I get all of those put down, that's going to finish off card number 2. Another super easy, fun one that you know, you wouldn't have to foil it if you didn't want to, but that foil does look beautiful. Card number 3 is a very easy card because I'm going to use that Simple Blends, and it actually is the size of an entire A2 card front, but I trimmed my cardstock down to be a little bit smaller than that, and I'm just going to tape it in place with some washi tape just to kind of make sure that it doesn't shift too much. And then I'm going to flip it over and grab a couple Post-it notes because I plan to do a little bit of ink blending. and I want to make sure that I don't get that ink into the other areas. So I'm going to start off with some picked raspberry. This is just distress ink, just regular distress ink, and I'm using a mini ink blending tool. And then I'm kind of going real heavy in the middle and working out softer to the outside. And then I'll just shift my little Post-its, and I'm going to grab the next color, which happens to be mustard seed. And I'm going to do the same technique, starting heavy in the corner and working my way out lighter to the other edge. And then I'll move on to the next color. And the next color is going to end up being peacock feathers. I wanted vibrancy, especially since the papers in this kit were all neon type colors. I thought it would be pretty to kind of make most of the cards match. And once again, going heavy in the center and working my way out. If you've never tried the simple blends before, I definitely highly recommend them because they're just wonderful for making easy cards. They make it super simple to do so. I have the circle and the square, and now I have the speech bubbles. So I'm super excited about that. They have so many in there, and I want to get more to add to my collection just because just be easy to make, pop out a bunch of different easy cards with these simple blends. And then I'll pull that away, and we're going to move on to stamping. So I'm going to put this inside my mini Misti, and I'm going to use the sentiment that says hello darlin', but I don't want the darlin', not this time. So I'm going to take one of those Post-its and cover up darlin' and ink up hello with some Raven Detail ink. I'm going to stamp that down, and then I want to stamp it one more time to make sure that that is a good dark image. So I'll put my Post-it back, ink it up, remove the Post-it, and then stamp hello down one more time. And then I'm going to go on to putting this onto my card base. So I'm going to use, once again, the Brutus Monroe foam tape. Because the cards that I'm making seem to be fairly simple so far, I want to add extra dimension just by adding the foam tape on the back. And then I'll peel that the backing off of the foam tape. And then I'll adhere this down. And like I said, this is a little bit smaller than an A2 size card front, so I'm going to have a border around all 4 edges. And then we're going to go on to actually putting some more of those sequins on. And I'll just use, once again, my Crystal Katana along with the Brutus Monroe craft glue. I picked out some colors that would match in the bubbles that I already had. And then that's going to end up finishing off card number 3. So another really easy, simple card. You can crank these out like crazy. Card number 4 is going to use this gorgeous brand new paper called Jawbreaker, and it's just, they're all so beautiful. And I'm also going to use one of the die cuts from the kit. So I'm going to pull out the sentiment that says awesome, along with my Raven Detail ink. I'm going to just condition that stamp a little bit, and then I'm going to ink awesome all over that paper, almost making like my own background paper. And it's almost like this word was just meant for this particular die cut. So it fits across just about 2 times, then I'll stagger the word and the next one so that it'll just say awesome, awesome, awesome all the way across that background, and I'll go from top to bottom, and it ends up fitting perfectly. I did not plan that. As I was going, I was thinking, I wonder if this is going to go all the way to the bottom, and it does. It works out really well. So I'm going to trim it down kind of just freehand. I can finish it a little bit better later, but I just pulled off those extra pieces. And to stamp my sentiment, I'm going to use some heat resistant vellum from Brutus Monroe, and I'm going to use the word congrats. Now I decided to use the white pigment ink, the alabaster pigment ink, but you could do it another way. So I'm stamping congrats across the top, and then I am going to cover that with the Icicle embossing powder, whereas you could have done it opposite. It's going to end up that it's not going to be quite as vibrant white because you're using a clear embossing powder. You could easily have gone over it with the alabaster, but I wanted to try something different since it came with the Icicle embossing powder. And I'm going to trim that down, and then I'm going to get ready to adhere that to the front. I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue right behind the word because this is vellum. You want to, whatever kind of adhesive you're going to use, it needs to be either completely across the back or just behind the letters or whatever image you're using, because otherwise it will show through. And then I'm going to adhere down my die cut part just using some of that craft glue. And then I'm going to end up flipping this over and cutting off all that excess like I had said before. I just didn't want all of it sitting there, so that's why I originally just kind of hand trimmed a little bit, and now I can actually get it perfectly lined up. So I'm going to trim that all across the side and the top. And now, once again, we'll grab the Brutus Monroe foam tape, and we'll put that all across the back, and then we'll peel off the backing paper, and then when we adhere this, I'm going to adhere it all the way up to that upper left-hand corner, so that there will only be a white border on that right-hand side and on the bottom. And then to finish it off, I'm going to grab some of the Simply White Nuvo drops. I could not resist. You knew I was going to eventually pull out some Nuvo drops. I'm in love with these. And then I'll just put a few of those onto my card, and then that's going to finish off card number 4. For card number 5, I could not resist pulling out another one of the foilables, and so I'm going to use those same inks that I used earlier, and I'm just going to blend all over the top. Now I've sped this up about 4 times just because it's blending, but I will say that if you haven't checked it out, Christopher has some amazing products that coincide with this particular kit. And so there is a stencil that matches these speech bubbles, and there is an amazing die that goes with it as well. I wish I had it to show you, but I don't. However, they are incredible. So I will have those linked down below as well, because you're definitely going to want to check those out if you haven't seen those yet. So yeah, I obviously went in rainbow order, just back and forth, and then I am going to pull out some purple sketch Brutus Monroe foil. I love this stuff. This stuff is probably one of my favorites in the store. I mean, I say that about all the products, but this one is definitely one of my favorites. And again, I'm going to run this through my laminator about 3 or 4 times, and then we are going to slowly pull away. Once we're done there, we'll pull that away and the magic will be revealed. Now it does, because this is such a detailed image, it does stick to places you may not want it. So very, very lightly, I take my microfiber cloth and just kind of rub that over the top just to get it to pull away from those places I don't want it to stick. I have cut down some of the neon pink cardstock that came in the kit, and I'm going to adhere my panel down to the neon cardstock, and then I'm going to get ready to stamp out my sentiment. I've grabbed some black cardstock, and then I'm going to use my magic powder bag over that, ink up my thanks stamp with some clear embossing ink, and then I'm going to cover that with the alabaster white embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat set that till that is smooth and melted. And then I'll actually go ahead and trim that down. And then I'll cover the back with some more of that foam tape, and then I'll adhere the rest of the card, or I'll finish off the rest of the card. So I'm just going to use some liquid glue to adhere down my panel to my white card base. Once again, that's your Not Your Mama's cardstock. Love that cardstock. And then I'll peel off the backing paper to my sentiment, and I'll adhere that down to the bottom. It ends up fitting perfectly across this card. Fortuitous, absolutely. And that'll finish off card number 5. So I'll show you some extra cards that I made without the camera going. This first one uses the embossing folder along with the papers that came in the kit. I then rubbed the matching Brutus Monroe surface inks over each one and then coated them with the Icicle embossing powder. And my card base is some sidewalk cardstock. And I just made a quick batch of 5. My next bonus card uses another foilable, and this time I did not foil it, I just sponged over it, and then added a heat embossed sentiment. And this last one uses another foilable, but I did sponge on it, and then I also used some orange sketch foil. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the cards that I made today. I think I made about 12 cards. That's a lot of cards for one kit, and I still have a ton of stuff left over. So these are very worth their money. So I'd love to know which one of these was your favorite. If you had a favorite, go ahead and leave that in the comment section down below. Or if you had any questions about anything I did, leave that in the comment section down below. As always, I will have everything that I can find in the store listed down below and in the description box. And guys, I just want to thank you. I think we've hit 5,000 now. So thank you so much for all the love and support and thumbs upping, sharing, commenting, subscribing, all that you guys have done. We've made it real far, and we're just going to keep on going. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so, because I have plenty of videos that come out every week, and I'd love to have you involved. And as always, thanks so much for stopping by.